And now, coming to you live from Bill Gates' Panic Room, powered by Apple, this is Half Baked News, with your half-serious host, Mark Herr.
Good evening. My name is Mark Herr. I'm the president of the nonprofit, nonpartisan Center for Self-Governance. Our aim is to advance civics across the United States through systematic politics. On tonight's town hall, Fixing America Together, we have three extremely brave women who have had their lives turned upside down by either their husbands being dying at the hands of law enforcement or their business being destroyed by looters and rioters. With that, I have the deep honor and privilege of introducing the co-host of the Jen and Don radio show out of San Bernardino, California, my great friend and a genuine truth seeker of justice, Donald Dix. Don, welcome to the show. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. It's really an honor to be associated with anything to do with the Center for Self-Governance. Greetings and welcome to a discussion about America, a constitutional republic that really appears to be at a crossroads. As Mark said, we have the privilege of having three women with us today who refuse to become victims of tragedies that unfolded in their lives. The first, Jeanette Finicum, whose husband was assassinated by the FBI during his involvement in a protest in support of Oregon ranchers over federal land use rights. Secondly, Delana Jones, whose business, a salon, was at ground zero of the riots that unfolded not just last week or over the last 2 weeks, not a couple of years ago, but during one of the original riots that unfolded in Ferguson following the death of Michael Brown. Her business was destroyed in those riots. And then Angelique Kearse, whose husband died in the back of a police car, suffocating to death from his restraints. Now, their stories, while seemingly somewhat disconnected, are indeed very much connected because they reveal the real story of what's unfolding in America today. All across the news, the headlines, we see the media painting a story, but it is not the story of what's unfolding in America. What's happened to these ladies and countless others like them are the real story of why we're seeing what we're seeing in America today. And it's really too easy to label these ladies as victims. Doing so casts them as powerless. And as you'll get to know them, you'll see they're anything but powerless. Their journeys since their interaction with law enforcement and our criminal justice systems reveals them to be anything but victims. Yeah. They are survivors who have become change agents in America today, and revealing why and what those changes are that they're now committed to is the focus of our conversation today. Now, for those of you who are perhaps hearing about these ladies for the first time, what I'd like each one of them to do is, in their own words, tell us, ladies, what happened to you that you would like people to know, and about those circumstances that unfold following these catastrophic events in your lives. Let's start out with Angelique.
First of all, I want to say hello to everybody, and thank you, Mark and Jeanette, for for having me on this platform. My name is Angelique Negroni Kearse. I am the wife of Andrew Kearse, who was killed on May 11, 2017 from Schenectady police officer in New York. My husband, he pleaded for and begged for his life over 70 times within 17 minutes and died in back of the police car. Literally, he's saying, "I can't breathe." He stated that he felt like he was gonna throw up, and the officer stated that don't throw up in his car. He said that he felt dizzy. He complained each and every time, and the officer just ignored his pleas for help, and he died 1 minute before he got to that police station. And when the captain came to Officer Mark Weeks, he stated to the captain, and he said, "What happened?" He said he was doing that I can't breathe thing all the way here.
Mm.
So since that day, I've been his voice, and I'm going to be his voice, and he's going to be heard. Thank you for having me.
Next, if we could, let's go to Jeanette Finicum. Tell us a little bit about what unfolded in your life and what you want people to know about what has happened since.
Well, it's been about 4.5 years now. Back in 2016, my husband went up to Oregon to stand in a peaceful demonstration in reference to property rights. It started with the Hammond issue up there. 20 or so days into this demonstration, they were on their way, as they had done multiple times before. They had left the refuge. They had gone to neighboring towns they had been invited to speak. They were headed to John Day, where there were 300 people waiting to hear them talk about property rights and the Constitution, about our liberties and freedoms. And they were ambushed on that lonely highway. There were over 40 FBI, HRT team members and armed state police that were there at that ambush. You know, Obama's administration, Obama's Comey, you know, a head of FBI at the time, sent all of those armed men out there to stop this demonstration. Lavoie exited the truck after, well, as he traveled, they were shot at 6 times, even though they had broken no laws and had no warrants for their arrest. But when he ended up leaving his truck with his hands in the air, he was then shot 3 times in the back while his hands were still, his empty hands were in the air. And so since that day, I have been traveling the country trying to continue to keep this message alive, this story alive, to inform people of this story, because, you know, those 60-second sound bites, and when they're so good at demonizing the situation or the subject, you have to go back out there and continue the message. So that is what happened to our family back in 2016.
All right, thank you very much. And then last but certainly not least, Delana Jones, the owner of a salon that was the victim, one of the victim businesses in the riots at Ferguson. Delana, it's great to have met you today for the first time. Tell us a little bit about your story and some of the circumstances since that day when your business was torched.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your story. So the name of my business is 911 Hair Salon, and I was basically vandalized. Literally, I believe that was like the exact next day when the riots and different things, the rage broke out during the protests at nighttime. And unfortunately, I think the second, it was either the first or the second time, but I know myself and my children were in there when they broke in and vandalized. And we had to, you know, basically run out into a very traumatic scene that left a wild hair on my children and myself. And so my whole being, as you see, is now that brought me to being and meeting Mark, meeting other people on the Center for Self-Governance. I started hosting classes in the salon, joined several boards to try to help build up community and to try to see how can we move forward. I'm also a cosmetologist. That's what I do. I'm also a independent beauty consultant with Mary Kay, and I right now serve on the board of the Heartland Chamber. As you see, I'm wearing my shirt, but is to move forward and how it has to let people know that awareness of how this leaves a very traumatizing on a person's whole family. I am a single parent, and it left me not just financially distraught, but also mentally and emotionally.
We talk about getting involved as citizens and reclaiming our political power. One of the things that we have the ability to do is influence legislation. You have been actively doing that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my first active in doing it, my goal and what I still would like to see happen is neighborhoods like Ferguson, I would just say North County and North City, period, learn about how the government works. So you not just going to vote, but knowing who you're voting for, knowing, no matter what color they are, knowing what do they value, what are they, what are their policies, even in, I don't care what color you are. I don't want anybody that's all the way one-sided. I want someone in there that's fair and that is going to equalize and be as fair as possible. As far as like the board with dealing with the St. Louis Heartland Black Chamber, we have been advocating since this happened, not being paid, volunteer service, trying to get memberships, trying to get funding so that we can help build up what is missing in these communities, disparities, finance, resources, that we can be that, we can be, like that filter to help service people. And so those are some of the things. And as far as laws, I tell you what, I vote.
And you get other people to vote, no doubt.
Yes.
So,
very good.
So Jeanette, you touched on something that is going to become a theme in our conversation today, and that is the label lynching of your husband, the weaponization of language. He was referred to as a domestic terrorist. We're hearing those terms now in regards to Antifa. But tell us a little bit about how that played into the ability of the government to do what they did to your husband, to take his life. How did that become a part of what unfolded in Oregon?
Well, the media was very complicit in helping the government frame the narrative. That narrative for the public to continue to hear day in and day out, all day long. And so what is your first impression as a listener, right? And so much of America believes everything that they watch on CNN and the television these days, no matter which channel they're listening to for their news. And nobody has the time to go and investigate and do the research that's necessary to find out whether or not you're hearing the truth. We're too busy. And I implore us to become less busy and devote more time to doing real research and educating ourselves on these different issues that are coming to the forefront. But again, the label lynching that they did in order to demonize the people that were standing peacefully. And that's the thing, is there is no, when you compare these two situations and you have two groups of people being called domestic terrorists, who looks like the terrorist? These cowboys that are standing talk about liberty and freedom for all Americans, or a bunch of group of people that are torching buildings. It makes no sense to me that these people couldn't be there to demonstrate peacefully like they were, without threat of death, murdered. My husband was murdered because he was exercising his First Amendment right to speak. And Angelique in New York has been doing an enormous amount of work trying to get some legislation passed. And I'd really like to, I'm working on things like that myself in the same vein as I continue to go and travel around the country to bring awareness. But she has actually been successful in getting legislation passed just today. And so I'd like to.
Yesterday. Yay!
Well, tell us about that. Tell us about what happened, your success with making a difference in terms of the laws.
Okay, well, yes, it passed yesterday. It passed in the House as well as the Senate, and all we have to do is just get the governor to sign it, and then it's a law. It's called the Andrew Kiss Act. It's a good and bad thing, because at first it was supposed to be criminal, but it's civil. They had to re-amend it because of, that they didn't want to go for the criminal aspect of having the officers or COs be held accountable. But we have it civil. That way, if either officer or CO, even I'm sorry, MTA officer, a school guard officer, any kind of officer will be held accountable if they do not seek medical attention for either a civilian or inmate, and they will get, we will have civil liability for them, which we're gonna get their paycheck, their pension, their little house, their whatever we got, we're gonna get it for them. They could stop killing us and stop, and finally some kind of liability that they, you know what I'm saying, for killing our loved ones, for injuring our loved ones, for just hurting us and us dealing with everything while they move on with their lives. Like for instance, my officer, there was 4 officers involved in my husband's case, which 3 of them was out when he was in the car. He was pleading for his life, and one of the officers is saying, "What do you want us to do?" The main one, which is Male Officer Mark Weeks, and he's African American as well. He's the main one in the cop car, antagonizing my antagonizing my husband and not giving him the medical attention that he needed. He also was also trained in the military. So you can't tell me he didn't know my husband was in distress at all, because you get trained for that. And he just regarded every plea. Like I said, he literally said, my husband Andrew said, "I'm begging you, please, please." And he just ignored him and thought he was lying, and his bluntly respect for the human life. He was like a serial killer with no empathy. So this law will finally hold each and every one of them accountability. And it's great because we got it for New York. I'm going for federal with Elizabeth Warren and Anaya Presley, and I'm feeling mad great, y'all. Like, you don't even understand. 3 years I've been fighting for him. 3 years for him to be heard, because like I said, he pleaded over 70 times within 17 minutes, and he's finally being heard, and it feels so great. I'm sorry.
Well, congratulations. Absolutely. In fact, some of the comments in the chat room are talking about qualified immunity, talking about piercing sovereign immunity for law enforcement, making them a little more accountable. You mentioned something I think that's really important about your situation. The driver of the car that your husband was interacting with was also African American.
Yeah.
And so it would appear that in today's events right now, with what unfolded in the case of Minneapolis with George Floyd, that's been painted as a racial issue, as a race-related issue, that he was targeted. But in your case, race had nothing to do with it.
No, I don't believe in that, because like they say, these officers say they're not black, they're not white, they're blue. And we have to weed out all the bad ones, because even when you're a good one, they stick up for the bad ones, and that shouldn't even be. It should be that you're there to protect and serve, and that's your job. You're supposed to do. You're not supposed to, be judge, jury, and executioner. I lost my family. I have 7 children. I have 4 children with my husband. I was with him 11 years, 10 years married, and for him to take take my husband out of my kid's life is detrimental. After he got acquitted, this man got married. Okay, he got married, so his wife got to walk down the aisle. Where my daughter, our little daughter, doesn't get to do that. She don't even get to have a daddy dance with her father. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, he got married. He opened a bus company in December from Schenectady, New York to New York, and it was like a slap in my face. Nah, it's wrong. It's wrong what they do.
So his life went on, whereas you're left dealing with a family. Now, important question here. What's unfolded over the last 2 weeks, given your experience and what you have seen unfold over the last 2 weeks with the calls to defund law enforcement, in some cases dismantle law enforcement? What do you read into what's unfolding right now based on your experience? Do you think law enforcement, like in New York City, should be defunded and dismantled?
Yes, they should. They're getting scared. What to dismantle is to change the laws. That's the first thing. So each and everybody on here, or who's seeing and stuff like that, I need you, each and every one of you, to go to your politicians or your lawmakers and state that you want the Andrew Kiss Act to pass, because if, like I said, he saves one, he didn't die in vain, and that helps me and he helps others, and that's my main goal. That's my, you know what I'm saying, that's the main thing, because if each and every one of them, George Floyd, Eric Garner, Andrew Kears, if Lavoy Finisher, if they had to pass away in the way that they had to pass away, you know what I'm saying, and it's to save just one, they didn't die in vain. That's our goal. That's what we want. We want some kind of justice, some kind of closure, and I think they should do that for us.
Delana, you were victimized by the riots in Ferguson. I'm interested in your thoughts about this call that's going up nationwide to, right now Seattle is under siege. You've got, and I'm going to also pose this question to Jeanette, because Lavoy Finicum was, part of what was being labeled as an armed occupation of a national wildlife refuge where there was no one there. And yet somehow the occupation of Seattle today gets a pass from the media. We even hear calls of Antifa asking for armed individuals to come in and help them defend their perimeter around City Hall and the police office, and the police precinct office. But Delana, in seeing what, from your vantage point, what's unfolding in this country and the calls to defund police and to dismantle police, what's your reaction to that?
So I agree that change needs to happen. I think that change starts individually with each person, because there's not just a change in the police department that needs to happen. There's a change amongst the people that needs to happen. Yes, the police officers that are police officers, they care about their job and they are there to protect and serve the people. They need to keep their job, because if I call the police, I need somebody to come and show up that is a good person, that is not going to attack or kill my brother, my sister, no matter what color they are. Because unfortunately, I've heard of, a lot of cases like Jeanette, but they don't get publicized. We don't hear about them because they're white. I just talked to several on my block who know several white men that have been killed by the police. And I'm like, I ain't even heard about it. And then they was like, oh, my friend and this and that. So I find
double standard.
Interesting that there's no media towards that. Right. So we need to stop making this about color. This is about people, because just like there's criminals on the street and there's criminals in the justice system, we need to weed out those criminals on both ends. So I think that we have to consider those things. Yes, we are upset because of injustice. Yes, we are angry, but we need justice to be served rounded. Don't take away my protection, and I'm not doing anything wrong. Also, do what's right amongst all of us, regular population, and that's my whole point. So I'm not sure. I know what defunding means,
right?
But I'm not sure of the context of, but I know that change needs to happen within the system, period.
Well, I think you are hitting on something that's really important, and that is that there has to be change on both sides. Jeanette, you talked about, I want to come back to this label lynching, because what's happening right now is racism and the labels of racist and white supremacists, and white supremacist, as your husband was characterized, has been used to justify dividing us, because as a divided country, it makes it easier for the powers that are trying to, in my opinion, rip America down and change America, it makes their job easier. How do you see that, given what unfolded following Lavoie's death and what you see now unfolding in America? How do you see this label, this weaponization of labels playing out?
Well, in my husband's case, they use those labels to demonize the people who are peacefully demonstrating and creating a sense that there was more fear necessary on the part of the American people, that we should have been more fearful of those people that were standing, talking about the Constitution and talking about property rights. Oh my gosh, we need to kill them. They shouldn't have the right to speak. That's pretty much what the media did in their rhetoric. They stoked the flames of the American people with the words that they chose to use to describe those peaceful demonstrators. And it caused a great divide. And there was a lot of hate and venom in those words. And what I watched today is almost the opposite from the media, because they're almost glorifying what is actually happening out there. They're not holding any of these negative protests. Now, what I'm talking about, there's lots of peaceful demonstrations going around the country, and I'm not talking about the ones that are peaceful. I'm talking about the ones where they're beating up innocent people that are walking down the street, or trying to shop in a store, or coming out of their home, or burning a building down, burning businesses down, like Delena's business. Hundreds of thousands of people have been affected physically and financially from these riots and these lootings and these protests that are not constitutional. And what has our elected officials chosen to do? What have they chosen to do? They've chosen to sit on their hands and do nothing for these innocent people that are being affected by these riots and looting and these effect to bodily harm. Oh my goodness. If any of those men or women that were up in Malheur in 2016 had even thought of doing that, they would have. As it was, they brought in over 400 FBI agents, and it took over the small town of Burns,
right.
Took over the airport. They were SWAT teams. They had tanks for 20 people. 20 people. And look what they're allowing to happen across America. They're burning these cities down, these governors, these mayors. They don't care about the people in their towns. They don't care about the people in their cities. They want a complete change of system. That is what we're watching happen. They want to eliminate the 7 boundary system in which our founders set up, and they want to bring in anarchy and a communist type socialist system. And that is what we're watching happening across this country. There's no arrests. And if there are arrests, they're being bailed out the very same day. So these same criminals are being let out because there's no bail. These different counties, no bail. And they're just letting them do it all over again. And so do we disband the police? No, don't disfund. Do we defund the police? No, let's get rid of those bad apples like we've been talking about. There has to be real accountability. There's not 2 sets of laws for 2 sets of people. It's all the same. It's all the same, whether you're a blue or a different race. And it isn't about race. Oh my gosh. It isn't about race. We are Americans. We are all human beings, and we deserve to have a peaceful existence, a free existence in this free country. Every American. I'm sorry, I went on a rant.
No, Jeanette, I want to continue on that theme, because I'm interested to know, do you believe that your husband was also defending Angelique and Delena's freedom?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. You know, when he was questioned by a reporter from Al Jazeera, he was asked about, well, what if it was us here? You know, what if it was the Muslim people taking over the refuge? What would happen to us, right? Yeah. My husband's, and I'm wearing the shirt, I don't know if you can see the shirt, but I'm wearing a shirt that says, freedom has no color. Freedom is colorblind. That's how he felt. That's what he believed. He loved all people. He loved all people. He didn't look at color. And we should not look at color. We are all human beings. And one of the things that just really bothers me when I have looked at some of these different stories, especially Angelique's, And I listened to her husband plead for his life.
Mm-hmm.
Plead for his life in the back of that car. That officer had no feelings left inside. He was past feeling. A human being was dying and he did not care. Those are the types of officers that should not be in the police force. When you are past feeling, when you commit crimes, you need to be gone. There aren't two sets of rules. You need to stand for trial. You need to go to jail if you have committed that crime and a jury has found you guilty. My husband should have had a trial. He should have been able to have a jury decide whether he was guilty that day or not, like everyone else did that went to Oregon and was found not guilty. He was murdered and didn't have that opportunity. His due rights were stolen from him. Sorry, I went on another rant.
No, this is we're getting to the quick of.
100% with her. I really do. I agree.
Say it again.
I agree 100% with her. I feel that yes, Andrew should have got due process as well. The officer should have got charged with a crime. They should have not got scot free. There was no indictments whatsoever. The grand jury failure to indict him, and it was wrong. That's why I want the federal government to pick up the case, and I want them to press charges on him as well as the other officers. It's not fair. It's not fair that we get charged. If we were to do the stuff, we would get charged with a. We probably be thrown the book, get life,
right?
And they did not one thing, and it's not fair. It's not fair to us. They're humans just like us. Just because you got a badge doesn't mean you're above anything. And we're gonna take them down one by one, and they're gonna see that that the time is coming and the time is now.
So I want to go to Delana on that very issue in your community, keeping people divided among racial, political, and economic lines. What do you see the effect of that in Ferguson, in that community, before, during, and since those riots?
I don't see that. It seems to be that when there's a healing of wounds, in order to heal a wound, you have to allow air to come in. And the only way you allow air to come in is if you come outside and be open-minded. Because of the recent situation, now what was not healed is just reopened, if that makes sense. You know,
sure.
So because there was never a healing process, because people, you know, still feel like I was treated unfair. You know, my voice wasn't heard. You don't understand. Because you have these things still existing, there's no healing.
I want to get to your thoughts, each of you, on what we as individual citizens can do besides voting to bring about, a positive change in America, and in fact, protect America. Starting with Angelique, what should folks be doing more than voting to bring about positive change that can save lives like your husband's in the future?
Like I keep saying, you need to go to your politician, all your elected officials, and state that you want these laws to be changed. State that you want the Andrew Kids Act to pass, because like I said, it's a medical act. They can't say that, when they saying I can't breathe, or if they're having an asthma attack or any kind of medical issue, they cannot deny them whatsoever. You get a Fed charge. Then we have the Stephen Clark law that states that if you're running and they cannot shoot you in the back, for instance, like Stephen Clark in California, Jeanette's husband. Then we have the Eric Garner law, which is the chokehold. They cannot choke us. If these three laws pass and go federal, you know how many lives will be saved? So I need each and every one of you to go to your elected official in each and every of your states and tell them that you want these laws to pass, because it will be so magical. It will save so many, and each and every one of our loved ones, they wouldn't be dying in vain. We survivors need that. We're not victims, we are survivors. And we asking you, all right, to help us be the voice of our loved ones and help us seek this change that we need, because the change is now. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Good. Jeanette, what should people be doing besides voting to bring about some change or to protect against what we see happening in America?
Well, I think that we need to educate ourselves on many levels. First off, with the current events, we need to understand that CNN is not giving us the whole scoop, and we need to dig deeper and turn off the television and really get into the internet and find the things. Oh, how cute! She's sweet. But I think ignorance is what they hope for. Ignorance is what they plan on, right? If we
Yep.
stay ignorant, then they have control. And if we educate ourselves and understand the system of government that the founders put in place for every single American, no one is exempt from liberty and freedom. It was for each and every single one of us. And so we have to get active. We have to get to know our politicians, our local governments. We need to understand how they operate and who's in charge. And then we need to get involved. Once we've educated ourselves and we understand what's going on, and don't take what we hear on the television verbatim, oh my goodness, do our research and then go out and be an effective voice for change. Because we can. Look what Angelique has been able to accomplish in getting those laws passed. And I know the 4.5 years that I have been out on the road, I know there's hundreds and thousands of people that now know who Lavoy Finicum was, and they know what he was standing for, and they know that they know that he was standing for each and every single one of them. And I'm so very proud of who he was and what he stood for. And I just pray that I will continue to have the energy and the drive to continue to have the goals met that we are looking to have met in reference to our particular case.
I want to give Delana a chance. Tell us a little bit about what you think folks in our communities around the country should be doing to bring about positive change. Voting, what kind of turnout do you guys get in Ferguson, and give us a little bit of an idea as to whether, what that's like in your neck of the woods, and then what should people be doing?
Thank you for asking. So Ferguson, I think it was like 16%.
16% of the people vote?
Yeah, for the mayoral race. So here's what needs to happen is change that is effective. So if I'm going to make change, first I have to start with me. So my issue is, and I had some scriptures, because this is here's my thing. God is in control of everything.
Yep.
And nothing happens without the Lord allowing it. So first we must pray. We must continue to keep prayer and trusting God and allowing God to lead us into where we should go. Meaning, even with voting, you got to pray over that. Like, Lord, direct my path of who and what and I should vote for, and then finding out, learning, doing the work, the footsteps, Also, there are disparities in the communities, so we must find, the community has to support the for example, like us as a chamber, the businesses. We need the businesses and we need corporate to support us in our effort to help build up the community, because we know that business build up communities, right? Not non-for-profits. And that's all that pretty much came to Ferguson, was a bunch of non-for-profits. Not any, large corporation or business that can actually help with taxes, that can actually help build schools. I'm gonna say this real quick. When I was very young, and I really didn't trip off of it, didn't know any better, my daughter's dad, I went like all the way out to St. Peter's to go to Walmart, because that's where I went, because I didn't like the one in the neighborhood. And he was flipping mad, and I literally didn't get it. And unfortunately, not all men know how to communicate right away, but later he said, because you went outside our community and spent money. When you spend money in the community, that sends taxes for our schools. That money helps our community. When you spend it in another community, it helps their community. So people need to understand, because I've done it. I see it happening all the time. So change come. I mean, people don't want to admit it, but change, money. It comes with money. So if you have any business, any major corporations in your community, you know, it's not going to help affect change. So that's what I mean by everybody changing as a whole. You know, God forbid, and you know, you two beautiful ladies have my condolences. I've never met you before, Miss Angelique, but I have met Miss Jeanette, and I would just love to learn and know more about you. And, you know, we can share this. This is how it starts, in little small rooms like this, you know, on the chamber that I'm on. It's like maybe 6 of us doing all this work, but our small work is for the effort of many. So just like you think about the Constitution, right? The Declaration, it wasn't the whole America, you know, it was small people. And I know, because this is what let's be very candid and real. Minorities and people of color say, oh, you know, that wasn't created for us. That wasn't made for us. But if you really read it, not the portions that's been amended and snuck in that they changing, but if you really read the original documents of the Constitution, God was in that Constitution, because it says all men are created equal. So it don't matter what you're thinking. When I write a document, I've already put you in that document because the Lord put you in that document. Because all men, it says all men. They didn't put no, oh, just white men, oh, just this. There was none of that written into the document, in the documentation. So it literally is for all men. This republic was built by God. So we keep leaving God out of everything.
Hey, Delana, I've got a last question for you, given what you just said. I view America as a beacon of freedom for the world. Do you believe America is a racist country and that systemic racism exists in America, like we're being told by the media?
So that is a hard question to ask, because there is some certain aspects of racism according to what has not been done yet. Okay. But it's still happening, you know, as far as just on a minority rate. As far as I'm you know, I'm a black girl, I'm a sister, I'm a black girl, you know, so there are some disparities, you know, there are some, and this is what I say to my children. Life is not fair. Life is not fair. And when I take her to biblically, I mean, I go from a whole biblical aspect. So when you think of biblical, I can't say the Egyptians was black, right? I'm just saying, this is me, y'all, now. I can't say the Egyptians was black and then say, oh, but they really didn't enslave people. Like, I can't say historically what has happened, but then take away the portions that I don't want to. So we know history repeats itself. History repeats itself, okay? And I just think let me say, this is what I know. This is what I know. And before I'm gonna read this one scripture to you. But this is what I know. History does repeat itself. The Lord says nothing is new under the sun. Nothing. So this is not new. This is, you know, people like, oh my God, this is not new, honey. This is not new. This happened a long time ago, centuries ago. Rise up against, you know, this is not new, okay? The children of Israel they walked around 40 years lost, and the Lord told them where to go, and they were still lost. So let's get to where it rightfully stands. We know that nothing happens without the Lord allowing it. So if the Lord is allowing it, then he's trying to get our attention. You know, so what we need to say, Lord, what are you asking of me? What do you want me to do? You know, we need to pray for Angelique, her prayer, maybe, I don't know, but apparently God is leading you to create change in laws with policing it's the Andrew law. I want to make sure I say it right.
Andrew Kears Act.
Andrew Kisser.
The Andrew Kears Act.
Can I say Andrew Act?
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up the last name. I'm telling you, I can mess up a name.
Look, it's like Sears, but with a K. Kears.
Oh, Kears. See,
Sears with a K.
Like
there it is.
Right. Kears. So the Andrew Kears Act, like that is your portion. That's your contribution. So I love that and I respect that. But what we have to learn to do as a people is I can't tell you, oh no, Angelique, you should be over here building a chamber. No, that is her contribution. This is where she's at. Oh no, Jeanette, you have like 2 books. You shouldn't write no more books. No, this is Jeanette's contribution. This is what God is leading her to do. So what we need to do is,
I feel you.
is get on our knees. We need to talk to the Lord and have the Lord to direct our path so that we are not following somebody else's path. Because if we on somebody else's path, we're not doing the job that we're supposed to do. And excuse me, I had quite a bit of other scriptures, but this scripture, I'm always kind of in the word. I'm like, how I missed this one? It's such a good one. Let me read it to you.
I love her energy.
This is the King James version. Okay, this is First Corinthians 15:33. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Be not deceived. Evil communication corrupts good manners. I'm like, oh my God, I love that. How did I miss that? But when you think about when the Lord was talking to the Corinthians, he was telling them to get their act together. So my home front is that in order to effect change, we have to stop saying, oh, Angelique, I see something in your eye. You need to get it out your eye. Mm-hmm. And I'm blind as a bat with stuff in my eye too.
I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna keep that in my eye, but you know what? I'm gonna keep on moving on.
But love, literally, God says love all. And I'm telling you right now, that was my scripture, and I'm gonna leave with this prime example. I have a neighbor. This last week, I'm gonna say it real quick. I mean, not last week, but last year. It's a black lady. She will not speak. She will not speak to me. But you know what I do? I speak to her every time I see her. Hey, how you doing? And other people, they like, I wouldn't say hi to her. I wouldn't. I'm like, girl, she can't stop me from loving her. I'm going to speak to her every time I see her. How you doing? She got to wave at me because your energy don't change mine. You know what I mean? So we have to be water and not bottles of soda. You shake a soda bottle, what happens? So we have to be water and not soda. Not moved by our emotions, because we that's not of God. Our emotions, right?
Right.
That's not of God.
I think that you're bringing a spirituality to the conversation that I think is part of the reason the building blocks of a just and civil and moral society are being ripped apart. And one of them has been the removal of faith-based principles from the public square and from schools as well. Angelique, your husband's life was taken not in what can be characterized as a racial event, but let me ask you that same question. Do you believe that America is a racist country and that systemic racism exists in America?
I believe it is at times in certain situations. Not all, but for instance, my husband, the officer was black. So, and my husband was black. So it wasn't racial bias on that one. So you can't use that. The fact that he got denied, it was the fact I believe is the officers. The bad officers need to be weeded out. The good officers need to tell on the bad officers. But then you have also George Floyd. When these white officers are on George Floyd and they're literally murdering him and he's asking for help. They're ignoring his crime. You can even hear the one of the officers saying oh, if he's breathing, excuse me, if he's talking, he's breathing. Like they have to be trained. They said that with George, they said that with Eric Garner, and they said that with my husband. How is that? You're talking, you're breathing. They're not medical professionals. So these officers need to be trained right. If for your audience and everybody that's also, on this panel, if you haven't seen my husband dash cam, view it.
I did today.
Yes. And your thoughts on that? I ask, why? Because I'm his wife. I see it a different way. You're a person looking in, and I respect, everybody, their opinion on it. I don't like when they commenting bad things on it. I don't like it. Don't like, oh, he got what he deserved, and it's wrong on each and every level of some of the people out there that's really mean and cruel, like really. And I don't feel that, you guys should, if you're gonna have negative comments, please don't. I respect each and every one of everybody's opinion, but respect the survivor, because like I said, it's damaging to each and one of us. But yeah, like, what's your opinion on it, Donna? Like,
gosh, it's heartrending to see what was unfolding there. That I think that just like in the George Floyd case, had I been that spectator holding the camera, I don't see how anybody could stand by and watch what unfolded without taking direct action to intervene. Yeah. And your case, where you've got a Black officer and a Black, victim in police custody, obviously you can't color that like it could be colored with the George Floyd incident with race. And I see a lot of parallels between the two. You had two officers that really didn't care about the individual that they had in custody. And it's heartrending to watch him just collapse, knowing that his life was being snuffed out in the back of the car. And the officer, for whatever reason, whether it's training or lack of compassion, both of those incidents, I see a lot of parallels, and race, I don't think played an important element in each one, but one was used to advance a divisive narrative across this country. So that's what I saw.
Thank you. And I like, you literally, like, I don't know, everybody, you see my husband, this is him. He was tan color, he looked Puerto Rican, right? He really was Black. He was my Chris Brown. And you can see, you see him, from tan color, to pale white, and you literally see death on his face. So I don't understand why the officer, you couldn't even just, he's asking for the window to be open, and he's just with no malice, don't even open for that.
Right.
I want to, each and every one of you haven't seen his dash cam, view it. It's a 45-minute dash cam. In the beginning, you don't hear it, you don't hear it, but then you hear sound, and tell me what you think. And if you feel that it's wrong, share it. Be his voice. Because like I emphasize that, because like I said, he pleaded, literally begged for his life 70 times within 17 minutes and died in the back of the police car. And they didn't want to say to me that he died in the hospital. No, he died in the back of the police car.
That's clear.
Thank you.
Jeanette, last question to you. Do you think this country is a racist country? Do you think that there's systemic racism like we're being told?
To the question.
Systemic racism, a racist country?
No. And I don't believe that there's systemic racism in this country. I believe that people love each other of all walks of life a heck of a lot more than what's being shown on the television. I think that they have had a successful period of time on TV with the news broadcast to highlight certain subjects continuously, nonstop, to put that narrative out there to make us believe that we have a bigger problem than we do. And it has been going on for years, this type of brainwashing, if you will, because I don't believe that we are a country of hate. When there was a crisis, a hurricane, a flood, you watch the country come together from all over,
right,
goods and supplies and donating. I was involved in one of the hurricanes down in Texas, and I live in Arizona, and I was coordinating with people from New York. We're taking semis. There were people up in Washington taking semis. We are a country that loves, and we give freely of our time and our resources and our energy. to nations around the world. I don't believe that we're a hateful country. However, I believe that we have people who are evil in this country, and they do evil things to innocent people. And in our case, my husband was shot and killed by a white officer, and he was a white man. And so I just believe that there are people who are inherently bad and are evil. And I want to believe that. I want to come from a place of love for all mankind, because that is how our Savior was for each and every single one of us. He is no respecter of color, right? And
Yep.
loves each of us, and he's everyone's Savior. And so that is how my husband and I operate, and that's how we raised our children, and that's how our children raised our 35 grandchildren. And if it's that way all across the country, there can't really be that much hate going on. But when they take an incident and blow it up and stir those feelings within these young people that really need these kind of, I'm looking at all of these faces on this screen, and I'm thinking we need all of us to be their mentors, because they're being mentored by CNN. They're being mentored by the rioters and the looters, and we've got to save our young people because they're believing the rhetoric that's coming across the tube. So no, I don't believe that we are a country of hate.
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that if everybody went through some CSG classes, that we could end this madness. And I want to thank CSG and Mark and the leadership team and the board of directors and all the people who lead KTR teams around the country for their dedication to restoring or working towards restoring our constitutional republic. I believe that there is an effort to divide us along lines of economic and racial and political lines. So a divided people are easy to conquer, and I think cultural Marxism is at the root of that, and it's at the root of trying to break down our republic, which does stand for great things. We are a beacon of hope and of freedom and liberty for the rest of the world. And I think that is the key reason why we're seeing some of those things happen in America. Mark, you have to do some explaining here. You got to explain very quickly that 7-layer system. And then I'm sure that you've got some questions you've seen fly by that you'd like to loop the ladies into, but it's been my pleasure and thank you and honor to be a part of this conversation and be able to hopefully guide it in a way that you envision for tonight. Mark, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, Don, thank you very much, and to you beautiful ladies for your contributions. And we want to stress to everybody that our aim is that we would leave this meeting tonight with the firm commitment that we can work together to make and fix to fix America together. And all of these stories on one hand are tragic, and these women are not victims, they're survivors, and they are working together to make change, not just for themselves and their children under their hard circumstances, but for all of us. And so if we can have more of these conversations with each other, we can do great things together. That's the one thing I want to stress about our organization is we really believe that people can be empowered, and that if they conversation, they can work together, they can find solutions, and that's the beauty of our country. And so our 7 boundary system was designed to prevent oppression. And when people get into government and they figure out how to manipulate those boundaries, people like Andrew and Lavoie end up dead. And businesses like Delena's gets destroyed. And we end up in division from one another. And so if we learn those boundaries, like Angelique's doing with her laws, learning to navigate the politics that she probably never really paid attention to until she got thrust into this terrible situation. Now she gets to be the voice for her husband. And Jeanette also having to do things with politicians and learning the government. And Delana getting involved with the Black Chamber of Commerce in Ferguson and working to make change and then coming together. to have these are hard, challenging conversations for us to have because it's difficult to navigate. Is there something wrong with the system, or are we just inherently racist? I mean, all of these conversations are going to be powerful over the next 6 to 12 months. And so we get to be a part of it. And coming together is just a beautiful, amazing thing for us to do. We may disagree, but we definitely can find common ground. And that is, I think I just was looking at the comments and some of the questions. Everyone agrees if we should hold people accountable when they do bad things. And so one of the questions, and I'll throw this out to the ladies, is from a gentleman who's asking, should the police officers have regular psychological testing?
I would say once a week. That would be great, because for instance, in my case, I got diagnosed with PTSD and depression, you know what I'm saying, because of everything that happened with Andrew. And yeah, I had to go and ask for help. I had to put the kids, like I said, I have 7 children, and I'm a grandma to identical twin boys. So I had to put the kids in therapy as well. You know what I'm saying? My younger ones, which the 4 that I would have with Andrew, they're 3 boys and a little girl. I had to put them because they lost their dad. And I was scared that also my sons will be affected by police officers, because if they get older and they ask me for help, that they don't go to the officers, or they have this thing with officers because, you know, say their dad pleaded and asked for help and they caused his death. So I had to train my sons to go to therapy, and I also had to train my sons in order with the reaction of how they interact with officers, what they have to do. If they see an officer, you know, if they get caught, I tell them I say, what do you do? We ask for you, mommy, or we ask for a lawyer. All right, if you get caught in a car, what you do? We put our hands up on the steering wheel. We don't move. You know what I'm saying? And my sons are only 9, 7, and my daughter, she's 4. I gotta train them from young. And how is that? Yeah, they need psychological testing. Yes, they do. I'm sorry.
It's okay. One of the questions that we kind of talked about when we were preparing for this was about the effect of organizations, particularly Jeanette and yourself, Angelique, and I think Delana, you would see this from Ferguson in terms of like rebuilding and planning for the riots and stuff. But for specifically Angelique and Jeanette, how or which organizations have helped or hurt you in the process of seeking justice?
Well, for instance, in my case, they didn't help. Well, I shouldn't have to give money to an organization in order for them to help me. If it's a nonprofit organization, they're supposed to help you. You know what I'm saying? And I shouldn't have to give money for posters and shirts and stuff like that. You know, like I said, or for instance, a lot of people don't know that if they're giving money for the families and they're giving it to the organization, we don't get it. The organization gets it. So if you're gonna give to the families and stuff like that, give direct to the family. Don't give it to the organization, because like I said, I didn't get nothing. And also I'm tired, and I don't want people to be like, oh, yo, yeah, she got a lawsuit and all this other stuff and she's fine. No, I haven't got that lawsuit. Yes, I settled, and I'm still waiting because my husband had other children and I gotta go to surrogate court. So yes, I'm still living with 7 children. I work for the post office, so I'm not on welfare. So I don't want nobody to say that, oh, she's on welfare. No, I'm not. I work for the post office. I'm a mail carrier, all right? And I had to take myself out of work because of the COVID, or this whole situation, because my job did not have no protocol. So yes, I'm here with my children. My three children got special needs, and I gotta deal with them, and I gotta do remote learning, which that's another within itself. You know what, that's hard. It's hard within itself, and driving me crazy. But I'd rather be here and stay safe, because I was scared that if I catch the COVID, I leave my kids parentless. But yeah, like for instance, if you're gonna give to the organizations, don't give to the family. Point blank period.
Real quick, Angelique, I wanted to follow up a question on that, and that is, so you mean like nonprofits or activist groups were asking you for money?
Yeah. And now they want to take credit for the law that I did. If you see if you see on this list, there's a person called Ari the Voice. He's my partner. He's been with me since Andrew been gone for since when his 4th day. He knows I've been fighting hard, and me and him, he's my boy. I swear to God, me and him been in the trenches. We go outside, we been to rallies, we make people sign the law, we go out there. If you look at Natalia Fernandez, she has thanked me through this whole thing. If it wasn't for Angelique, her inspired to help get this law passed, if it wasn't for her. So yes, I've been on the front lines 100%, because you know what? Like I said, Andrew should have not died like that. He begged for his life, and and I had to be his voice. I just had to. He wasn't going to be another black man dead from the police. I wasn't going to allow that. I had him in life, and I was going to help him in death. Point blank, period.
Jeanette?
Yes, I agree with what Angelique has had to say about different organizations taking advantage of the crisis in our personal lives. And there's a lot of different people and organizations that want to piggyback and try to further their cause or agenda. And I can't remember which organization you said, Angelique, was doing that with you, but I've also seen that. But for the most part, the American people have been my support system across the country. That's who's been my support system. And I want to do a couple of shout outs. One for you, Mark. I know you don't want me to say this, but Mark has been with our family from almost the beginning, and especially for the last 2.5 years, has traveled with us, helped get the documentary out there, has continued to help and give us his time and his resources to help our family continue this legal battle. And I have to give a personal thank you to Mark and Pam. Yes. Also, all of you, I see a lot of faces on this screen that I know you. And before I was just a stay-at-home mom, I didn't do Facebook. I have now, you get a limit of 5,000 friends, right? I was going through my Facebook the other day, eliminating, you know how we eliminate sometimes, and I'm going, but I know that person now, I know that person, and I am in shock and in awe of how many of you I actually know from all across this country who has stood with our family. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from my family. And then also, Alan Eccles. I have to say,
Great.
A big hello and a love and a thank you to our dear friend Alan, who is now passed. He introduced me and Angelique.
Yeah, he did. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have known each other. And then when we met each other, I wanted to say this. When I met you, Jeanette, it was like a kindred spirit. Like, I really love you. Like I said, like, you was my sis for life. Like, and we just like had that bond of losing a husband. And it was just like, I want you to understand, everybody, nobody understands. This is not a group that I recommend us to be, the survival group. No, it's really bad. Nobody understands that what we're going through. And I want everybody, if you are telling a survivor to get over it, stop. Because we're not gonna never get over it. It's an empty hole that we cannot fill. If you're saying that, oh, it's been this long and that long, no, stop that. Okay, because we do not like that. We don't want to be told that. We're survivors, and you need to treat us like that. We grieve as much as we're gonna grieve, and we're gonna grieve till the day we die. So stop telling us it's to get over it. Thank you.
Thanks, Angelique. I wanted to say about Alan, he has been an amazing patriot and lover of this country, and one who has given 100% of his time. Here is a patriot down in Texas who was calling me as I was traveling through New York. I said, yes. Jeanette. He says, Jeanette, because he talks with a twang from Texas. Jeanette, you gotta meet Angelique. Yeah. She's right there where you are. You need to call her, and you need to watch that video, and you need to meet her. And so Mark and I are traveling in Bronx, New York, and we have an event, and I'm in the car, and I turn on that video, and oh my gosh,
Yeah, and then you called me, and you was like, oh my God, I just seen that. You was like, I just seen his dash cam, and you was like,
so then I call Angelique, and we introduce ourselves, and we talk about our experience, and then I invite her to the event in New York, and we're sitting there in a group full of
mad people.
big guys. They're big guys, huh? They were big guys in that room, and 3%ers out there, and she and her mom and your aunt all showed.
My mom, my cousin, my best friend was there, and then some of the people didn't want me to be there, and I told Jeanette, I said, do you want me to leave? And she said, no, you're gonna stay, they could leave. I was like, okay. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that's what happened. You don't have to be there. Oh, I was so touched that she took the time to come all the way out to that event and to meet me and to be introduced to my husband and to learn more about our story. And I really have appreciated that. Yeah. And we become great friends. And that was like 2 years ago. And
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for part 2 and part 3. You still haven't showed me.
So waiting. Our documentary series is in the mail. So you can see the whole thing. But if it hadn't have been for Alan Eccles from Texas, we would have never met, and we would have never connected, and we would have never been able to share our stories together and to be here today with you sharing our stories together. And I really wanted to let the universe know how much our family, the Finicum family, loves Alan.
Yeah, I love him too. And he will be very missed. I really will. He was supposed to teach us to go to Texas together, right? To go on the boat. Look at that. That's what he said.
That's right. He would love to canoe.
Yeah, the canoe.
I think it's important to point out that Alan died just 2 weeks ago, and so he didn't get a chance to see this opportunity for these women to come together. I filmed the riots from inside Delena's store in 2015. And I filmed 7 white people organizing the riots, and they would bring the young 15 to 18-year-old black males to this car, and they would hand them these water bottles full of acid, and then they would go throw them at the police officers. And these white people flew in from 3 different states, and I won't say who they are and what their states are on the air here, but they were bringing these young, impressionable males who were mad and wanted to protest, and they were saying this is a legitimate protest. And these are the same people that were destroying Delena's store. So I was really curious, Delena, what organizations or individuals helped or hurt you during that time?
So I really didn't receive any help. Like I said, I had to get loans, and the financial, the resources that were sent in. For example, my aunt is been at FedEx for like, oh my God, over 35 years. And so before Fred retired, he was like, what's going on with your niece? You know, did she receive any of the funds to help with her business? And she was like, no, my niece said she didn't receive anything. He like, what? The only contributions that were made was Mark and Dottie. I think you guys did the GoFund for me, and so that was like a contribution I didn't have to pay back. And my godmother, she actually has a ministry, and we just at her annual women's conference that she did, they just happened to donate toward me. So I had personal donation, but all the people saying that they was, hey, you know, we're here, we're gonna do this and do that. No. Emerson hurt me. Silver lining, you know me, you know I try to find the lights in every situation because everything else would just keep you in the dark. They had me go, I mean, almost a year, almost all up in my business. Right before the riots, the place where I was living, the people were not paying the mortgage. So my children and I had to like uproot and leave within like less than 2 weeks And so the owner of the building where I was at, he said, well, just, get your kids, find you guys, get settled, and then, restart paying me, into the fall, which is usually when we pick up in business. Most all business pick up in the fall. Well, that's when everything popped off with the Ferguson. So the ladies, they was just like, oh, well, we see you were already behind. I'm like, I told you what was going on with that. I mean, I have paperwork and everything, but supposedly it's just, they hurt me because they took a lot of time away from other things that I could be doing, wasting my time, asking about my business. And I don't know if I ain't supposed to say the name on live or whatever, but oops, I already said it. They did nothing. They did nothing. And that it really stung because, when you let people in your personal business and then there's no results, I don't like wasting my time. I'm big on that. I mean, I'm a business owner. I don't do waste my time. So whenever I'm in something, I like to see, some cause and effect from what I'm doing. And that really stung. I mean, thinking about it, it hurts because they made it seem like to the lady who took over the business, they made it seem like they were gonna, donate and help pay some things and help organize. They ain't do nothing. And so when you say that systematic or that racing, it's those people who, as Ms. Jeanette say, who do have hate or whatever unresolved, I didn't get hugged enough issues going on, that keeps that cycle going. Because they helped a lady who was, I mean, not saying she was, but she was not at ground zero. And she had this therapy, she was already established and everything. Well, they gave her money. They told me I should vacate my business and go work for somebody else. I was like, so you wasted 7 months of my time. And so that was big. But other than as far as organizations, I heard about a lot of money being passed around, and a lot of that just went to nonprofits. It didn't go to the business community. There was certain business that received more help than others because they was clicked up or because they, was following whatever the leader said. So as I stand right here speaking today, I believe in truth and fairness, and I believe in trust in the Lord. And we serve a just God who is no perspective of person, as you said, Ms. Jeanette. So I don't believe in, oh, you got to pay because you white, or you got to pay because I don't believe in that. I believe that God is in control, and God, I serve a fair God, so I serve a God that knows what each person needs. And that's just, it didn't happen like that. There was cliques, people, they got their little, and this was the cold-blooded part because the money came. And to be honest, from my perspective, what it looked like to me is the white people said, we're gonna let the black people handle that. That's just what it looked like to me, because that's kind of what happened. But as all of us have said on here, we're all human. So it don't stop me from having a clique because I'm black, or because, whatever, I'm a person of color or a different ethnic. That don't stop me from having humans or a perspective of man, right? Not God. So there was a lot of that going on. Oh, and it's not that I was against protest, because protest is your right. That's your First Amendment right. I was not for rioting, looting, and destroying my family, and you doing nothing to rebuild it, period. That's what I was not for. I don't care what you say, long time. I do not, two wrongs do not deserve one right. So I don't agree with that. And so because I did not agree with that, I was literally like attacked because of that. I mean, every time I turn around, they was vandalizing my building. My daughters, I'm a single parent. So I sometimes, my kids is usually always with me. And she's still traumatized from that, literally. You
Yeah,
know,
I remember. I remember, Delana, that they organized in front of your store. They organized the riots in 2014 and 15 in front of your store, and then when you became outspoken, they began targeting your store. And then last year, apparently, you were forced out. Well, I think we've learned a lot of things tonight. Number one is that when these tragedies happen, the organizations will come in, and I can't believe Angelique's story. I believe it, but I'm just saying I can't believe it, that they would say that she has to pay them. I don't know about the rest of the people on board. That's just over my head.
I'm upset that I didn't hear about her story.
Right.
That it didn't get any national attention. These are the things that really bother me. I'm sorry, Mark, but you know me. Those are the things that bother me. Why do I not hear, like the captain down here that got killed? There's no protest for him. If we're going to say that we don't like that, I might like murder on no accounts. It don't matter the color. I'm upset. I didn't hear national news about Miss Angelique. And when I met Miss Jeanette, and I'm hearing, I'm following, I'm reading a book. Why we didn't hear about this?
Well, the beautiful thing is that now we're coming together. If you're going to donate to tragedies that you're passionate about, bypass the organizations and go directly to the families. That's one thing. The other is that they have these objectives. Jeanette and Angelique want to be a voice for their husbands. And so they have their action plans that they're taking. The Andrew Kearse Act. Jeanette is working on getting the president to look at ending bureaucratic bullying and other things. And then for folks like Delana, there's over 4,000 stores in America destroyed by the riots in the last 12 days. But that's a lot of damage to people's, like Delana. It's like finding ways to help them recover their business in their community. And then at the same time, we can work together to figure out about like how to hold bad people accountable and what is the definition of bad. And so anyway, I want to let you guys know that we're going to have future town halls with other business owners from around the country, including Delana, to talk about the business destruction side. And then we're going to have follow-up town halls in the future to fall back to talk with Jeanette and Angelique about the progress of their efforts. So I just want to thank you ladies for being brave and being here today, and for Don Dix for taking time out of his busy schedule to moderate your conversation. So thank you ladies so much for your time and feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
Likewise. I hope to come out to New York with Jeanette and see you again.
Yes, I hope so too. Yeah, it's a date. Oh, I told Jeanette I need to go to her. She got to show me how to be a cowgirl.
It's a whole day on horse this morning.
You do. You need to go to her ranch, Angelique, and get on a horse, and you will and meet her daughter, because her daughter throws cows around like they're nothing, and then she like cuts off the stuff and like sticks the knife in her mouth, and it's like, what's going on? Yeah, you need to go do that.
You gotta make a date. I gotta go over there. I want to be a cowgirl. I'm like, woo!
Yeah, you have to come and bring your kids because they'll have a good time. We have
That's a lot of them. I said me.
Okay, you come
It would be awesome if you ladies could get together and have a time like that. That would be absolutely amazing.